day number 2 of my 7-day personal Facebook Live challenge. That's quite a tongue twister. And for those of you who are just joining, thank you so much. It means the world to me that you're here. If you have a chance, go to my Facebook page, Align by Design, and click on learning this. Click, click, click. Click below. Anyway, enough of that. My guest today is Grace Suchowski, an absolute amazing woman. And let's just bring her off so we can get this party started. Hi, Grace.
Hi, Lilyvette. How are you?
Great. I'm so glad that you were able to join me on this journey. I couldn't even think about doing this journey without you. Let me put it that way. So tell those who are joining us live or who are watching the replay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am an Army brat, traveled Europe and a lot of the USA. Finally settled and met my Chicago. We settled in California like 30 years ago, loved the weather. And I basically tried a couple of different careers and settled with real estate. I found that real estate is my passion in helping people achieve their real estate goals. It's very satisfying to help families find their first home, upgrade, or downgrade.
So, we're definitely going to dive in a little bit into that. But your specialty in real estate isn't just about home ownership, because you actually broke into an arena that very few women go into, which is the commercial space. So how did that develop? And because it is primarily an industry where you have a lot of men who concentrate in that space, how did you navigate it? How did you have that be one of your areas of expertise?
Well, at first it was curiosity, and challenges is the number one thing that drives me. So out of curiosity, I thought, you know what? I need to give that a try. I know I can do it. I just need to learn it. So I did. I went in to commercial real estate, went through their training, and it was a challenge at first, but like anything else, once you learn what you need to know, then it becomes second nature. And when you do know what you need to know in any particular field, especially if it's male dominated, the men tend to eventually see you with respect.
So share with us a little bit about what that journey looked like, because I'm sure that, well, it's like anything else, right? They have to kind of get to know you, but share what your experience was in entering that space and having them see you, as you just finished stating, respecting the ability and the skill set that you brought into the commercial real estate space.
Well, my initial experience was, what can I say? I'm trying to be as gentle as I can.
Oh, no,
but it's
no. You say it how it is, right? This is
how it is.
Benefit other women. So
it's
how you need to say it.
Okay, male chauvinists.
There you go.
A lot of male chauvinists going on, belittling the women. And during the training process, it would be a matter of, we would stand in front of the class to sell our property, to give the description, typical, real estate lingo. Mm-hmm. And if it was done incorrectly, the woman standing in the front of the class would get yelled at that you don't know your stuff. Why don't you learn? And it was just very demeaning and very degrading.
Wow.
Um,
So how did
and
you overcome that?
well, to me, to they, you know what? I don't know. Maybe it's a matter of how I projected myself in the sense that uh, I don't know everything. This is what I do know. This is how I present it. And if you have anything negative, derogatory to say, you say it to me in private. Don't say it to me in front of the class or in front of other people. So a lot of the degrading and the humiliation perhaps came because of the women's projection of the insecurity versus how they carried themselves.
Now,
Um,
did
yeah,
you did you have conversations with these when these scenarios came up, or was it something that you did in private? Because it's the male chauvinist um, arena, if you will. In some spaces, they can be overcome. You obviously did, as you said, they became to respect you. But there are a lot of spaces where that's never bridged.
yeah.
So, were those conversations that you had with them in private? Did you, in your
Um,
very diplomatic, eloquent way, address it when it happened?
um, and a little bit of both. A little bit of both. In that I've had previous experience in working in the male dominated arena. I'm going to have to go back a couple of years here. Um, Back in the mid 1970s, I worked as um, an officer in a medical campus back in Chicago. And this is how I met my husband. And if you can recall, in the 70s, there weren't hardly any women in that field, law enforcement. So
Hmm.
that was a big challenge at that time. You know, you can see I'm a little bit on the petite side. At that time, I was weighing 110 pounds, 5'6", in full gear. The men would laugh at me and joke and say, "Oh, look at the gun is bigger than she is." So you develop this persona that, yeah, I'm little, but watch out. I know my stuff, and if I have to, I do what I have to do. And in that, at that time, there were a lot of the military men coming out of the military, doing their 4 years and coming into law enforcement. And so again, the macho military mentality, okay, like you're just a puny girl, we're big, tall, 6 foot, 200 some pounds. We take care of you. And it's like, I'm also trained. So in overcoming that arena there, I had to have a few conversations with a couple of the fellas. But I hear the locker room talk. If you have something to say, you say it directly to me.
Wow.
You
So
know?
you were not a wilting flower, if you will. So
Oh, no,
I do have a
no.
question because you mentioned that you were a military brat and you traveled around. How did that experience help you to have these conversations, right? Because you constantly had to adapt, I'm sure, every time that you relocated. So
Yeah.
how did that help you to then, when you went into law enforcement and when you went into real estate, did any of that have an impact?
Definitely did. My father was a sergeant when I was a child, and we traveled along with him. We moved every 3 years at Army bases, and uh, I- his advice was that, and it always has stuck to me. I mean, anytime your parent guides you, um, I just absorb it like a little sponge. So his motto was, no matter what you do, I don't care if you're a janitor, busboy. It doesn't mean the as menial of a job as it may be, all the way through a VIP or a VP in a company. You do the best you can, and your intent in performing that job or that service is to leave a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that to heart. And everything that I did throughout my life, whether it was career or personal, I applied that. And I can say that having followed that advice, I have seen that I have been successful in everything that I've done because of it.
And not just that, but the one thing that I admire most about you is your ability to focus, and you have this very unique and keen ability to just weed situations out, uh, and just have this discipline. Your discipline when you enter a task and when you give your commitment, that is one of the things that I admire most about you. Now, I'm sure that the military had, not the military for you personally, but being in that environment of having to move around uh, may have had an influence. How did you adapt with trying to figure out who were, and just throughout your career, right? Because we're going to fast forward this. And so my question is, how is that ability to have to adapt and figure out who are going to be your allies, who are going to be your supporters? How were you able to incorporate that into these different arenas that you have been very successful in?
Wow. Um, well, I think part of it has to do with knowing who you are, knowing your traits. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Work on developing your weaknesses and continuing to develop your strengths. I know for that I am task oriented, I'm analytical. So those are my strong points in being disciplined and doing what I have to do. Time management also has a large role in being disciplined. I think that my weakness is that I get so focused in the task at hand and the mission in front of me, that I may not be as sensitive to other people's feelings during those times.
That's interesting, though. I mean, but I mean, you're bringing up some excellent points, right? Because there could be some who are joining us or watching the replay, and they say, "Well, I'm all over the place." So, what would be some of the tips that you could share with us if you happen to be a person who is very much more creative, a little bit more all over the place? You talked a little bit about the time management. What kind of training or skills or getting of resources would you recommend for someone to fine tune that skill, that talent, if they're lacking it?
Wow. Well, for me, being disciplined means you first you need to set your goals. What are your overall long-term goals, and then break them down. It's almost like eating an elephant a bite at a time. You
Okay.
take your long-term goals and you break them down into shorter term goals, to the point that if you have a year, like for example, you may want X amount of income in a year. Well, how do you break it down? You break it down monthly, weekly, and then you go daily. So what daily tasks do I need to do to accomplish that at the end of the year? And perhaps if you're not as disciplined, to perhaps get somebody working conjunction with someone else that would hold you accountable, and keep you on track that way. I write my daily goals. I check them off as I accomplish them. So maybe that would be a way of doing it.
Okay.
And I think that if you're that much all over the place, that perhaps partnering with someone that has similar goals to yourself and you hold each other accountable.
So you bring up an interesting point in finding someone who has similar goals. But you mentioned that if it's too, that you get very, very focused and you can almost have like this tunnel vision, and then you have someone else who has that similar tunnel vision. What would be the negatives of that? Or are there any?
um, I don't, I honestly don't know how to specifically answer that question, other that there's always best to have opposite or um, personalities. So because opposites attract, would be much more supportive. I think that if both person or people are super organized and that focused, it could potentially cause frustration if the other person is not accomplishing those goals, and may even hurt the relationship in that specific arena, not necessarily the overall, but it may crash than a benefit.
Okay. So let's fast forward, because these are traits that you have been using during your entire career, and I'm sure that there have been obstacles and scenarios that have not made that ideal. Having said that, the last 8 months that the world has undergone this humongous shift, right? We're finding more people going into business because of the change, job loss, but create their ability to now be the perfect time. How have you been able to utilize these last 8 months, either on a personal basis or on a business basis, to keep you moving forward? Because you're a gal who is constantly evolving, you're changing. I mean, when I get a chance to talk to you, there's always another big project that you're undertaking, and I'm like, where does she find the time?
Lily. Well, and since March, on the personal level, there's been some medical challenges. My husband had to have back surgery, and he's still in the recovery mode on that. So I've focused a lot of my time in helping him during his recovery period. But at the same time is continuing education in my career to stay on top of things in the real estate arena. Because of the COVID-19, there has been a lot of changes in how to deal with clients to keep everyone safe in potentially visiting homes, doing virtual tours. So keeping up with the changing times in self-education, personal growth that way. And just trying, and the realization that we're all immortal and that we need to stop with the little stuff. Don't sweat the little stuff, like the book says, and enjoy life more. Appreciate who is there with you.
Absolutely. And I know that outside of this particular arena, since I've known you, there have been some significant health issues that you've undergone. Can you share with us your mindset of positive thinking that has they've been miracles that have happened in your life? I mean, that's what I'm going to call them, because they were significant. I'm not saying that your husband's back surgery isn't significant, which it is, but you underwent some things, and your ability to have that positive mindset and being open, that part of the education, finding discovery, really helped you through some of those. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because I think that the viewers would be interested in knowing your experience of how that helped you.
Okay. I think what you're referring to is about 5 years ago, I had a brain bleed. The entire top of my head between the brain and the skull was totally flooded. I was in intensive care for about a week. After I went from the intensive care to rehab, it literally took me almost a year. It was as if I had had a stroke. I had to learn how to walk, how to turn my body, how to turn my head. I just had to start from scratch. But, I have a very strong faith and believe in God. I never occurred to me that I was on my deathbed. It was something that it was part of my journey that I had to go through. And I believe that sometimes how you react to different scenarios in your life, whether it be health, personal challenges with a spouse or children, that sometimes none of that is about us individually or personally. It's more about how we react to that is a testimony to our faith in God. That's my belief.
Wow. Well, but that belief got you through that.
Yeah. So it's just like I just let the Lord use me. I'm his tool. I'm his vessel. That what is it that you need from me to accomplish? Bringing being a testimony to somebody else that may be going through similar situation, or even if it's not similar, but to say, wow, my challenge isn't as great as hers, then I need to check that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, what were some of the things in addition to just the recovery? I know that you did not stop. I mean, you still all the time to still generate revenue, which is mind blowing. Mind blowing.
Well, because of how I work with my clients, I develop a very strong relationship, and I walk them through the entire process from beginning to end and coach them and hold their hand and support them in that journey of purchasing or selling their home. And because of that, we develop these strong relationships. And therefore, I have a lot of referrals. My business is basically all referrals. And that's because of how I treat my clients. I'm not a salesperson, I'm a facilitator, I'm their friend.
Well, that's interesting. Not a salesperson, a facilitator, and a friend. Now, when you're saying friend, it's not like that you're involved or go over to their house and all that kind of stuff. What does that business friendship look like?
Remembering when they purchased their home, their birthdays, their anniversaries, for no reason, stopping by to say hello, send them a card for no reason, besides having those events in their lives. And that triggers them. Oh, I'm so glad you reached out to me. I'm thinking of selling. I have a friend that needs to buy. So it's just a constant reminder that I'm there for them.
Excellent. Excellent.
And you're right. And during that time, because of those relationships, I closed quite a few escrows even during my recovery period.
Yeah, it's like this could have crippled, literally, physically, financially crippled anyone else. And you arrived during this time, which is, again, a testament to your belief system that you are being a tool. And it basically resulted in you being financially sound, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
So as we wind down our interview, what would you say to your future self? I mean, because you've done quite a bit, you've experienced quite a bit, but you're a gal that's not going to be held down. So what would you say to your future self?
Wow. Probably, there's been other opportunities that have come by that, because of my focus and what was in front of me at the time, I have bypassed. I would go back and take a look at those opportunities that were presented to me that I didn't follow through on.
Okay. Okay. So that you being a little bit more open to scenarios, but I have to honestly tell you, with your work ethic and with how you have your priorities in order, family first and the finances have come, I'm sure that full circle, those opportunities or better ones will definitely come your way, without a doubt. So I want to thank you, Grace, so much for taking the time. I know, and I have to say that I know that you are not a gal that does a lot of these type of interviews at all. So even for that, I so thank you that you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. But you know what? I know that others are going to benefit from the information that you've shared with them, and I so appreciate it. So if somebody is interested in purchasing real estate or commercial, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, my direct number, my cell phone is area code 951-733-1102.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So you've heard it here, Grace Suchowski, excellent, excellent commercial and residential agent. And I also want to thank Tracy Allen. She's been our producer. She is the owner, operator, creative person with a digital marketing supply, and I want to thank her. And if we can put up one last time how people can contact me. Let's see if I get this right again. No, I'm not even going to bother. I would greatly appreciate it if you would go to my Align by Design Facebook page and like it. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Thank you, Lily.